Welcome to Straight Talk for Women Only. I'm Judy.
I'm Janelle.
And I'm Mary.
And we are so excited about this show tonight because we're going to talk about a very intense subject for women. We're going to address it to women, of course, because this is Straight Talk for Women. But our subject for tonight is breaking soul ties.
The ungodly type.
The ungodly type of soul ties, because there are godly soul ties.
Absolutely, there are godly soul ties. You can have a godly soul tie, of course, in your marriage, godly soul tie with your children, godly soul tie with friends, with your Christian brothers and sisters, you know, to advance the kingdom of God. So God really instituted, you know, even though it doesn't mention soul ties in the Bible, but it talks about being knitted and bonded and glued together. It's something that God instituted to have people connect. It's a connection, and that's godly. But of course, the enemy tries to counterfeit and tries to put his So that's what we'll be talking about tonight, because a lot of people are caught up in ungodly soul ties.
Yes.
And they don't even realize that they're in it until God exposes it, sometimes shows it to them, or some of the symptoms of an ungodly soul tie, which, you know, of course, you know, the person's always on your mind. You can't think right. You can't do right. You're preoccupied with just thinking about them, wanting to be with them. You're just controlled by them, maybe even. So there's all kinds of ungodly soul ties. But again, I, you know, certainly want to mention that we do, you know, there's godly soul ties, because that's what, you know, God instituted it for people to be connected for purpose, for, you know, as children, parents, husband, wife, friends, Christian, you know, sisters and brothers, for purpose. Everything has its purpose.
So for our audience and for the people watching, what would constitute the soul? What does the soul encompass?
What is
the soul?
The mind, the will, and the emotions.
Okay.
That's your soul.
So it's that deep part of you.
Yes.
Your mind, your will, your emotions.
Right.
What kind of moves you, drives you.
Right.
All of that.
Your
just that
emotions
deep
are
part.
all entangled with the other person. Your mind, you, like I said, preoccupied with just thinking about them maybe, or texting them or emailing them, and, you know, just
checking
you're
your
away
phone
from
every
them,
5
checking your
minutes,
phone,
to see
you're
if they
away
called
from them. And it may not be
Text.
so obvious, again, because it can be very subtle. But until something happens maybe, and then you realize, you know, what happened? I want to, you know, you may feel, you know, for instance, you're around a person all the time. You may not even sense it until maybe there's a separation. And all of a sudden, you can't function.
That's good. That's good.
You
So a
can't
soul
function.
tie starts with spending a lot of time
spending
with
time.
someone. So anybody you spend a lot of time with, you can develop a soul tie with.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Close friends. I mean, was it through words, through promises, vows,
things spoken.
things you do together all the time?
Because I think you have to understand how important our words are.
Yes.
And how we have what we say. And so if you say to someone, I can't live without you, I can't do without you, I'll never live without you.
Right.
If you die, I'll never get married again.
Right.
You know,
Or you're
those
the
kind of
best,
things.
or
You're the only
so
person I'll
beautiful.
ever love. I'll never
Right.
love another person.
And even there's another one, which is the sexual encounter.
That's a big
Now,
one.
see-
Not being married. That's a big
That's a big one.
That's what I always looked at a soul tie as being.
Yeah.
Anytime I've heard it preached or talked about, I always thought,
The
okay,
negative.
a soul tie happens when you've had sexual relations with someone out of marriage, and I knew that was how, one of the ways, but only one of the ways that a soul tie is formed
Right.
is by those
Right.
sexual relationships that are ungodly.
Yeah, because that's a big one. That's like, you know, you're just giving a part of your soul away, you know, when you're actually, you know, having relations with someone outside of your marriage.
Right.
Because really that's preserved strictly for marriage.
Right.
So that you can become one. That was the purpose of it. You know,
mind,
it's
your
intimacy,
will,
the
and your
bonding. You're a
emotions.
will, and you become, the two become one flesh.
One
So now
flesh.
you're doing it outside of a marriage. So of course, you're now becoming one with that person, your mind, your will, and emotions. And that's diabolical, it's demonic, and it's not of God.
So anytime you have a sexual relationship with someone that's not your spouse, you do develop a soul tie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's just a given
Yeah, well,
that
just-
you're going to develop a
Absolutely.
soul tie.
Wow.
You could, like, who was it?
So-
Somebody was saying about being, a husband being in the bed with his wife and then his girlfriend too. In his head.
In his head.
And unless those soul ties are broken, and you have to do something specific to break it, you carry that thing with you through your life.
Absolutely. A lot of times, even you'd be surprised with husbands and wives that gotten a divorce.
And they're still
still
connected.
tied
They're
together.
still tied.
Right.
They're still tied.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially if they have kids together and they say, well, I'm going over to pick up the kids, and really they're going to see.
And it happens sometimes that
And so
even,
you're like, let me hurry up and look nice when he's coming to get
Yeah.
the kids, right?
Yeah.
and that even though they're divorced,
Right.
they'll end up being
Sure.
going to
Intimate
bed
with each
together.
other.
Absolutely.
When they see each other,
Yeah,
because
there's
there's
a
that
soul
soul
tie.
tie.
And
that's
if they don't
still
break
there.
it, it can still happen. They know they don't want to live together, but they know they want to have that pleasure together.
So this is what, I'm just getting this thought right now. This is what God uses in marriage to connect our minds, like you just said, one flesh, our minds, our will, and our emotions. Because without those things, we're just two spirits. But I'm saying, what would be the point? You don't cover your mic.
Two spirits.
Right. So with our
around.
mind, our will, and
Okay.
emotions, because God gives us everything to function in every area
Right,
of life.
exactly.
So our soul is what helps us function in the earth realm and in relationships.
Right.
So we have to be careful of who we get connected
Absolutely.
to, whether it's friendships or male-female relationships. Because you can get connected, as we're talking tonight, to someone that God never intended for you to be connected to. You know what I
Exactly
mean?
right.
And if it's lust is just looking for something to hang out with.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Exactly.
If I got a spirit of lust and Jimbo got a spirit of lust,
It's gonna
it's
attract.
gonna attract
Yep.
one another.
Yep.
Right. You know what I mean? And then a soul tie.
Then he leaves you, and then he
Right.
takes part of your soul.
Right.
Yeah.
And then unless that's broken and you go into another relationship with another lust-filled person,
Exactly.
then it's like part of your soul is just
It's
like
All over the
shattered.
place.
All over the place.
All over the place. Yeah. Because
so
you
you
don't
never
even know who you are. You can't think right. Because God, he created us unique, and he's, fearfully and wonderfully made, but we just make a mess out of it because the enemy comes in to pervert it, of course, through all these types of relationships. And don't even have to have sex to have an ungodly relationship. You can have an ungodly relationship with a girlfriend, just friends.
Yep.
Somebody's maybe just controlling,
Control, yeah.
manipulative,
And it doesn't, and
compromising
it's not
your
anything
walk.
physical
Not
involved.
physical at all.
No.
Not
It's just
physical at all.
a controlling
Yeah,
spirit.
absolutely.
It
And they're just
controls
buddies. You ever see their buddies, their friends, they go out, they talk, they conversate, they go to different places, and they may argue or get in a fuss, and but one can't live without the other, so they'll control the other one with, I'm never going to talk to you again. Don't bother calling me.
Manipulation. Yeah.
And then the other one is
The other
like,
one's like, oh God.
I'm sorry.
Well, how am I going
Right,
to?
right,
sorry,
right.
I have to do
I
what
gotta
I have
fix
to do
this,
to make
yeah.
this work.
No, that's a soul tie.
And it's an unhealthy one.
This is really important for you to hear, ladies, because like I said, you may be like me and thought, well, a soul tie only happens through a sexual relationship, and that's a big part of it that we're going to talk about tonight. But there's other relationships that you can have. It could be a relationship with your child that's a soul tie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it could be one that goes into manipulation, control. I've known of women that have gotten married after being single, and their children come in between them and their new spouse. And that
Big one.
is a soul tie, and an ungodly one, because that child feels like, well, this is my mom, and
Right.
You're invading my space.
yeah, you're invading my space, and so the woman really has to break that thing, so that she's able to have that healthy relationship
Right,
with
with
her
her
husband and understand
Right.
we're one flesh.
Right.
You will not come in between my husband
Right.
and I.
Well, that just happens so many times in especially blended families.
Yeah.
You know. And so, how do you break that?
Well, you have to develop new patterns, and you have
Okay.
to speak to that thing.
Okay.
And it hurts because it's something that it doesn't start overnight. It's something
Right.
that's been developed over a period of time, and it especially can happen to single women that maybe have one child or a child that they've been just really close with, and they've shared decisions. And so, what are we going to eat tonight? Well, we share that
Right.
together. Where are we going to go? We share that together because that's your little friend,
Companion
you know?
now,
Right.
right?
Companion. And it's not, that's not unhealthy in itself. That's just kind of a way of life. But when it comes to where you're making financial decisions with the child or your you know,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the teenager, and then you
All of a sudden, somebody comes in.
yeah, God
and
sends someone into your life, and
They're out
you're
now.
going to get married, and all of a sudden it's like, well,
Yeah.
wait, you made all those decisions with me, and now who is he?
It's almost like a person being displaced
Yeah.
Yes,
because they have been in a certain position and they were comfortable, they're familiar, they liked being wanted, they liked the fact that they were important.
yes,
Now they're losing all that. They're no longer wanted. In their mind, the enemy's going to torment
Right,
them
right.
because now mom, she got this, you know, she got married, and now she don't even ask me nothing. She just, you know, she doesn't talk to me like we, you know, used to go out places and we
Yeah.
used to do things together, and I just don't understand. You know, she puts him before me, and I'm her
And begins
daughter.
to resent the-
yeah, then
the
resent the
husband,
marriage,
resent
and
the
then
man.
there's causing a division between the husband and the wife now because she's trying to. Women are more relational, and the father, the mother, you know, the stepfather, if you put it that way, he may be saying, you know, this is what you need to do, this, and that, and she's like, well, let me just. She's trying to do it real, you know, easy because it's a hard transition. It's a
It is a very
transition for
hard
the mother,
transition. Yes.
And for the child.
for the child, and it has to be done in a godly way because if it not, you can really bring more damage.
Exactly. And you can do it in a way where you're still going to have that loving relationship with that child. That's your
have to,
child.
yes.
You know, that's not going to change.
Right.
But you can do it in a way that you preserve the relationship.
Right.
But the soul tie that's
Right,
there.
right. That's
has
what you
to
have
end.
to. You have to somehow or another break that soul tie, and you have to really start with just asking God for wisdom
Yes.
because God knows where that child is at, how you need to minister, communicate, or certain things you can do to just allow her to realize and understand this is just another. The mommy hasn't changed. My love for you, I'm still your mother, but our lives have changed because of the new role. You know,
And our relationship
is in
different now.
right. It's a total different relationship. You know,
I think
got to
sometimes
create
too,
something new and different.
sometimes too, you as a parent, we may put our child in a place that they never should have been. Allow the relationship to where the parent-child line has now become blurred, and opposed to it being this, it has become this. So we
Right.
have allowed them.
Sister thing.
Right. We've allowed them
the
to
friend.
think that.
Friend.
Just
Yeah, we're just
Yeah.
friends, and we should never allow
Right.
that to happen.
Well, that's why they talk about boundaries. You have to have boundaries in any relationship. And once you know the boundaries of it, just like you're saying, exactly what you're saying without the title, which is boundaries. Allowing them to know you're the mother, you're the parent, and they're the child. And the boundary is how do you parent? You know, you're not going to treat your children the same way you treat your girlfriend.
right, right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's what it's called, boundaries. So you have to ask God for wisdom. You have to set up those boundaries. And you know, you don't stop, you know, even I'm sure in a situation like that, the person with the daughter, she had to, you know, doesn't stop communicating or going out with her or taking her different place, but she has to rearrange her schedule, rearrange how she's going to do it. You know, without the husband feeling like he's number two,
Exactly.
Right.
because he ain't putting up with that. You know,
Making the husband number one.
right?
And understanding and letting the child know, and never talking about the husband to the child.
Right.
Because that is so detrimental.
Until she's ready to receive him and accept that. You know,
Yeah, but
she's-
even then, I
he'll-
mean, you don't talk detrimental.
Oh,
about,
no, not
because
detrimental. Yeah, I
women can
understand
do
what you're
that,
saying.
You
Yeah.
know, and that totally will
Right.
tear down whatever it is you're trying to build up. if you do that and have that buddy thing with the child.
Yeah, trying to
against the
say, oh,
husband.
dad, he didn't, or you know,
Yeah.
so and so used to have whatever his title may be to that child. Yeah, that would be disastrous. That would not be good at all.
I saw a show the other day, and I didn't relate it to soul ties until we were doing this show, and I started really looking up soul ties. But it was a husband and wife that had come on this show to get help because his wife had died, and after his wife died, he had one daughter, and he had developed this soul tie with his daughter. Not physical, so we're not talking about anything
Right.
weird, but he always took her places. They planned trips together. They went away together. She was his little buddy. And so then he got married. And the wife was on the show saying, I feel like the fifth wheel here. I don't like feeling like this.
Right.
She said, and the daughter makes me feel like that. She said, like, we went to Hawaii for our honeymoon, and when we got back, the daughter in front of the new wife said to the dad, "Oh, now when are you taking me to Hawaii?" And so the counselor on the show said to the husband, you have to break this thing.
That's right.
You have got
Created it,
yourself
yeah.
in a, he didn't say a soul tie, but he said you've got yourself completely out of bounds with your daughter. She's become like your companion, not in a sexual way, but
Sure.
you have to break that with her to let her know, this is my wife, you will respect my, and you know, and the man honestly looked like he didn't know if he could do that or not. And
Because
the
he
wife
probably
was
had a soul
saying,
tie.
yeah,
It was
he
him.
did.
Right, he had to.
The wife was saying, I can't live under this anymore. I love my husband, but I can't, I feel like, she said, I feel like I'm in a 3-part relationship here. And that's what,
Yeah.
that's what a soul tie will do though.
Yeah, this is, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so just to bring the
Right.
audience around, a soul tie is any relationship that is taking the place of God and that is consuming every part of your mind, will, and emotions.
Yes.
Could be in marriage, could be in a child relationship with children, parents, spouses, parents. Could be in your friends, girlfriends. Could be with your brothers and sisters in the Lord.
Okay.
Those areas.
Okay.
And where you know, like you can feel it. This, you know, this
You
is,
can't function. You're not.
Yeah.
You don't think clear. Your mind is oh, so and so said that. Oh, that's what so and so. You know,
Everything is so and so.
a lot of people do not realize they have a soul tie. A lot of women
exactly.
are
Yeah.
very susceptible to a soul tie because they're relational,
Yes.
and because they're relational, but the enemy unfortunately gets in there to pervert that.
Right.
Now, I
Right.
know years ago I was in a relationship, and I had no clue that it was a soul tie. I just thought I really, really liked the guy. I really did. In fact, I even thought I loved the guy. But he said he was going to call. He wouldn't call, and I would wait by the phone. I mean, literally wait by the. Wouldn't go nowhere. Didn't want to go out nowhere with nobody.
How many of y'all doing?
I mean,
Ladies,
I literally
happened to you?
wondering why he's not calling.
Or checking your phone constantly to
Yeah.
see if a text
Yeah.
message came
Yeah.
through, and if it didn't, by the end of the night, you're just
But see,
Devastated.
At that
Can't
time,
sleep. You in the bed. Who's he talking to? Where's he at?
right?
He
So
said he was going to call. He
what
didn't.
happens is I would actually just like cry and cry, and then I'd see him, and he'd make up some excuse. And I
And
said,
you
I'll
would
call
just-
you
you
tonight.
just
And then
fall.
it all just melt away, right?
Yeah.
Melt away.
He talked to me for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it took away the 5 days of
Because see,
anxiety.
words,
right?
Really
the
intent-
words,
yeah.
The words.
the words.
And they know how to say the right words
Yes.
to keep
You know, I
on
got
the
caught
string.
up.
Oh,
I just
gosh.
couldn't, get back with you. Listen, I'll call you tonight. You know,
know
you're
I
not my
love you.
number one. I really, it's you
You
and
better
me.
say that thing, Mary.
Hey, girl, let me tell you something. I had no clue what I was going through. It was the hardest thing to break. I mean, I didn't know the Lord. I knew He existed somewhere around, but I didn't know.
And it's painful to
It
break
is very,
It
very
is.
painful
because your emotions, your mind, your will,
everything is
everything-
entangled
everything.
with
yeah,
that
everything
individual.
That's you is involved.
So that's why I say a lot of women, they get entangled with men that really the enemy is using them to really stop the plan and the purposes of God.
Yeah.
Because I know that in this particular situation, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it would take too long, but after I finally got free, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Anyway, after I got free, it was almost like my destiny started kicking in, that I could start seeing.
But you cried out to God.
Yeah, I did. I cried out.
Without even knowing about soul ties.
I had no clue it was a soul tie. I just knew it was killing me, something that was hurting me. It was wounding me. It was causing me to feel like, oh God, why, please, I don't want to feel this way.
Like you
But
couldn't
you would still
exist
go
without
back.
it.
Right. Or I was just functioning,
Yeah.
but I was living to see this individual
Yes.
consistently and constantly. My whole world was mapped out and strategized
Around.
in his time, what he's doing, when we gonna get together, how we gonna get together, when we gonna get together. And I mean, I functioned, went to work, but when I came off work, it was like, when are you gonna call tonight?
All preparation was about,
all
are we
about
going
him.
to see each other?
Yes,
Not even realizing that it was a soul tie. And I
So-
did. I literally cried out to God. And I did get free eventually. And I realized, and after that, then things started moving forward in my life. My life was really put on stop at that time in my life. But when it was stopped, that thing was broken, thank God. It was like from that moment I can go back from the day my journey really started moving forward.
After that broke.
Yeah.
And so for many women, though, it started when they were teenagers.
Yeah.
And they developed soul ties that never got broken.
They never meet their destiny either.
And sometimes they even go on to get married.
Sure.
But it's still there. It's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. Tonight we are going to talk about how to totally break that thing, sever
Absolutely.
that thing. But I want to say something about, because one of my kids had a soul tie. And at the time I never thought of it being a soul tie, but I knew that it was horrible. She got involved with this kid at school, and it turned into something it shouldn't have been. And he was very abusive to her. And once we realized that was happening, we started trying to put a stop to it. But I mean, that thing was difficult to break.
It was strong. 'Cause
And one day, it had gotten really bad. I mean, the devil was trying to really take her mind of
Sure.
this thing.
Oh, my God.
And I went in her room, and I was cleaning her room. She wasn't there, and I was looking at, and I found this box of letters from this guy. And I read the letters, and I could not believe the words that were spoken. Because the things that were said in there was, I can't live without you. I will kill myself if I don't have you. And she had started experiencing suicidal thoughts. And I kept thinking, where is this coming from? And when I read the letters, I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. And all of those things that were said in those letters were exactly what she was facing. Well, I thank God that it did break. And when I really knew it was broke was one day, I was in the house cleaning or something, and she said, Mom, I'm going out here and I'm getting ready to get rid of all his stuff. So I was like,
Good girl.
oh, good,
That's
this
one
is
good sign.
great. And so she went out in the driveway, and I saw her out there. Of course, the other kids starting to get involved, and she had this big pile of stuff, clothes, like his sweatshirt, his this, his that, his letters, and she had all this in a big pile, and she was going to burn it. Well, I stopped that. I said, well, you can't do that because we don't want the fire department coming and we get arrested here. But she took scissors and went out there and she cut everything up, and that's when the thing just broke.
And that's one of the ways to break it.
Yeah.
Get rid of everything and
right.
anything that is related to that person that you have a soul tie with.
Exactly.
It's like a person that's engaged and they break up with the boyfriend or the fiance and they want to keep the ring. Maybe they ought to give the ring back. Yeah, because you don't want to keep anything. Get rid of those old
Give
pictures.
it back. Give it
You don't
back.
care if it costs $10,000. That's
Give it
okay.
back.
Give it back because you don't be bondage for the rest of your life.
If it's and if it's an ungodly soul tie.
If it's ungodly.
If it's an ungodly soul tie.
So if it's a godly one,
You could keep
and you wind up, is that what you're saying? What are you
if
saying?
it's a godly tie, I'm saying
I
hop
think-
that ring.
I think Judy
She's
got
trying to keep the
soul
ring.
tie with diamonds.
She
I
heard
got a
that
revelation
$10,000.
on it.
She heard that $10,000. She
Like,
went, well, if
wait
it's
a
a godly
minute.
one, I'm gonna keep my ring. Well, yeah, if you get a divorce, you keep the ring, of course. But I'm doing like a fiance.
Boyfriend.
Now if he
something
says
that you're
to
trying
keep
to
it,
sever, that
sever
you know
the
is
relationship,
ungodly, it's
right?
not good for you.
Right.
It's not right.
Right. That's yeah.
It's
because
abusive,
that's
it's
a part
controlling, it's,
of that is definitely a part of the breaking the ungodly soul ties. It's getting rid of items and things that are old pictures, some certain things like that, and also. Well, there's prayers you renounce and reject words, vows,
You gotta cancel
promises,
words. You
cancel
have to,
words that you
yes.
spoke out of
Yes.
your mouth, come against words that you receive from His mouth. This, how you get rid of those ungodly soul
You're the
ties.
only woman for me.
Yeah,
Nobody ever loved me the way you love me.
yeah, but that stuff
Exactly.
that's like a
And
record in your
you
head.
with Gloria down the street.
Yeah,
Right? But
I
Oh,
can't live
see,
without you.
yeah, I can't live
Yeah.
without you.
And
I can't breathe without you.
That's why they say the
There
power of
was a
life
song
and death.
that said I can't breathe without you.
There was
Well,
a
stop
song
breathing.
that said that. Every time I used to hear that song, I would say, that is so ridiculous.
can't breathe
How
without-
can you not breathe without? Well,
But
you're
it's-
dead if you can't breathe.
Well, they say the power of life and death is in the tongue. Also, the words can bring a snare. In Proverbs,
Yes.
it talks
A
about
trap.
Yep.
a snare, and it can just incarcerate you, basically.
Where you want to get free.
Absolutely, but
And sometimes you have to have somebody to help you get free.
that's right, because that's what, right, exactly. You got to, because if you,
You want
don't,
to get free. You don't want to be in that situation. You know it's
And you
like
need somebody to
awful.
help.
It's horrible. You don't want to feel like this. You don't want to, but you keep going back.
keep
you
going
know,
back.
it was amazing, because even in the area of deliverance, that I do a lot of ministry for deliverance and praying for people and ministering to people in that area. But did you know that was one of the hardest ones that I was dealing with initially when I first came to the area? God was using me in the area of deliverance. It was the soul tie with this young
Really?
girl.
Wow. There's an
it
agreement,
was so
though.
What, she had a
wrong.
soul tie?
She had a soul
You were
tie.
gonna-
She came to me and asked me to, pray with her. I was ministering to her, and she would come back, and I understood everything she was feeling, because it was a record. It was like a repeat of what I had been through. Because she would cry and cry. She'd swear up and down she's going to break off from this guy. She'd do everything to get away from his, the surroundings, not go where he was at, do the whole 9 yards. But she was miserable. She was miserable at home. She couldn't even get to the place where she could function. And she was a Christian. I mean, get to the place where she can even have an intimate relationship with the Lord, because this was such a block to her. And praise the Lord, she did get free inevitably, and she's now married with children. But and I saw that, and when I saw that, I felt it was the hardest thing to see her go through that, such a painful process for her. She was getting free, but it was a very
It was a process.
It was a process, and it was painful, because, see, when you have to, your flesh, you're crucifying your flesh, you're denying yourself, your emotion, you're denying anything and everything that is not of God. It's got to go, it's got to bow, and it's crying out for what it used to have.
Wow.
It's like a baby, about the baby with the bottle. Remember that story we was reading about, the baby with the bottle, crying every night, and they want the bottle, and the father said to the mother, no, just
Let
no
them cry
bottle.
it out, right?
And
Or
so
the
every
pacifier.
night, every night the baby's crying and crying and crying, and the mom wants to get up and go, but after a while, the baby stopped crying. Well, it's the same thing with our flesh. At first, it's painful, very painful. But once you crucify it, you start surrendering to the living God. You start rejecting those vows, those words spoken out over your life, in your life, and you begin to just move forward. Just go. If you got to even walk like a zombie to get there, just keep it going, keep it moving, keep it going, because God is the bondage breaker. He will break that bondage.
Now,
And then the new life begins.
Yes.
Once it's broken.
Yes.
Absolutely, because you can't move forward with that.
I just wanted to revert back for a second. Do you think that a woman can get married and still have a soul tie to a previous relationship, and that could keep her from fully having a full relationship with her husband?
100% yes. Yes.
So we're going to save that question for the start of our next show, because believe it or not, our time is up. So we're talking about soul ties tonight, and this is not the end. We're going to have part 2, so that if you have recognized in what we're saying that you have a soul tie, that we're going to help you to see how to break that thing and become free. Now, we've talked about soul ties with family members, with maybe children, and of course you're not going to sever yourself from those children.
Right.
So that's a little different because you have to learn how to redefine the boundaries and really get that relationship healthy and the way it should be. And then there's soul ties that absolutely have to be broken, severed, cut out of your life because you cannot go
Can't move forward.
with it.
That's right. Can't
That
go.
soul tie there.
right.
So hold on, we're coming back.
Yes.
Thank you for watching us,
Thank you.
and
Grace.
you're
are great
graced.
for everything.
You face.
God bless you.